storyteller.
I've been a night nurse at St. Jude's Hospital on the outskirts of London for over 10 years. A decade witnessing death, suffering, and countless outlandish tales of wandering patient spirits. I was always the first to laugh at those rumors. The hospital has an old operating theater, abandoned since the 80s, locked and off limits to everyone. Yet the stories still circulate. People say it's where failed surgeries took place, where unreleased souls remain trapped. With my scientific and practical mind, I always thought these were baseless rumors. Until that fateful night, I realized my skepticism was just a thin veil hiding a terrifying truth. That night, the rain poured and the wind howled, tree branches striking the windows with eerie sounds. Around 3 a.m., I was sitting in the emergency room's staff lounge when I suddenly heard a strange noise from the old operating theater. It was the clinking of metal medical instruments hitting each other, and a rattling sound like someone dragging a patient gurney. The noise wasn't faint. It was so clear I could visualize the scene inside. I startled, checking the clock. Who could be in there at this hour? That area had been sealed off for decades. Initially, I tried to reassure myself, thinking it was just rats or wind. But then, the noises grew clearer. No longer just faint clinking, but stronger metallic clangs, accompanied by the distinct patter of bare feet on the cold terrazzo floor, as if someone was moving very quickly. A sudden chill swept over me, the air in the lounge seeming to thicken, making it hard to breathe. I tried to be rational, telling myself I was just too tired and hallucinating. But then, something more terrifying happened. I saw it. Through the blurry glass pane of the lounge door, across the dark corridor leading to the old operating theater, I saw a tall, shadowy figure gliding by, like someone wearing a pristine white surgical gown. The shadow had no clear form, but I could feel its presence, a cold, heavy energy radiating from it. I froze, my hands trembling. My instinct told me not to look directly. I squeezed my eyes shut, muttering prayers. When I opened my eyes, the shadow was gone, but the noises were still there. This time, it wasn't footsteps or instruments. It was a faint, choked moan, as if someone was enduring extreme pain, and then a heartbreaking scream, echoing from deep within the operating theater, a scream full of despair and horror, like the final cry of a shattered soul. Goosebumps erupted all over my body, cold sweat trickling down. I felt as if someone was standing right behind me, their cold breath on my neck. I spun around. No one was there. But on the desk, my pen had rolled onto the floor, and the staff lounge door, which had been tightly shut, was now ajar, just enough for a chilling draft to seep in. I didn't dare look that way again. That entire night, I sat huddled in the staff lounge, not daring to move, that terrifying scream still ringing in my ears. The next morning, when my shift ended, I rushed to tell my colleagues. They looked at me with pity or skepticism. But from that night on, I was no longer the skeptical Daniel. Every time I work a night shift, especially in the late hours, I always feel watched, a cold sensation creeping into every corner of the hospital. I know the stories about the old operating theater aren't just rumors. Something horrifying happened there, and those trapped souls are still wandering, seeking release, or simply wanting to haunt the living. St. Jude's Hospital is now, to me, not just a place of healing, but a gateway to the terrifying secrets of the afterlife. As a medical student intern, I was trained to believe in science, in what could be explained. Mercy Falls Hospital in Boston, where I interned, is an old building with a long, tumultuous history. There were rumors about the old basement, which had served as a temporary morgue during a terrible epidemic almost a century ago, now abandoned. Young and with an absolute belief in medicine, I considered these fairy tales meant to scare new students. I used to laugh at those who spoke of invisible footsteps or whispers from the dark, until the night I was forced to go down there to retrieve a forgotten old file. That night, I was assigned to retrieve an old patient file from the archives in the basement. This area was rarely visited, with only a flickering light bulb and a pervasive musty smell. The deeper I went, the unusually colder the air became, even though the air conditioning wasn't on. I tried to ignore the creepy feeling, focusing on my search. Suddenly, I heard a very faint clinking sound, like someone tapping their fingernails on the stone wall, then dragging something very heavy across the concrete floor. The sound was subtle, but in that silent space, it echoed clearly, making me stop dead in my tracks. I tried to calm myself, turning on my phone's flashlight, sweeping it around. Nothing. I told myself it was just wind through a vent or a water pipe. But then, as I turned back to continue my search, the only light bulb on the ceiling began to flicker incessantly, then went out, leaving me in complete darkness. A shiver ran down my spine. I quickly turned on my phone's flashlight. Its faint light only illuminated a few meters ahead. From deep within the darkness, a faint whisper emanated, like the sound of many people conversing at once, but the content was unclear, just vague, haunting sounds. My whole body started to tremble. I felt a cold breath on my neck, as if someone was standing right behind me. I quickly turned around. No one was there. But then I saw it. At the end of the dark corridor, where the flashlight couldn't reach, there was a tall, shadowy figure standing motionless, staring at me. It had no clear shape, just a dense black mass blending into the darkness. I tried to close my eyes, but the image remained vivid in my mind. I felt as if an invisible force was pressing down on me, making me unable to move. When I gathered the courage to open my eyes, the shadow was still there. But this time, it wasn't still. It began to move slowly, each heavy step echoing thump-thump from deep within the corridor, getting closer and closer. The whispers also became clearer, but still unintelligible. I wanted to scream, to run, but my feet felt nailed to the floor. Just then, a terrifying physical phenomenon occurred. An old wooden chair placed against the wall suddenly slid across the floor on its own, creating a chilling creak sound, then collapsed, shattering into small pieces. That sound was like a strong blow to my sanity. I let out a piercing scream, dropping the file and the flashlight, and bolted out of there, not daring to look back. I don't know how I ran, only that when I reached the ground floor, I was gasping for breath, soaked in cold sweat. After that night, I was in deep shock, not daring to return to the hospital alone at night. The stories about the old basement were no longer fairy tales. The clinking, the whispers, the black shadow, and the sound of the chair breaking still haunt my every sleep. I had experienced the presence of something supernatural, something science couldn't explain. Mercy Falls Hospital, especially that forgotten basement, is now a terrifying place for me. A place I will never dare to return to, because I know there are souls still trapped in the darkness, waiting for a new companion. I'm Mark, a maintenance worker at Lakeside Hospital in California. My job is to fix everything, from leaky pipes to flickering electrical systems. I've worked here for over 20 years, and I've never believed in ghosts. I've been through every corner of this hospital, even the abandoned and least visited areas. To me, every strange sound can be explained by physics, and every creepy feeling is just imagination. Room 313 on the third floor was always locked, rumored to be where a patient committed suicide in the mid-90s, and his spirit still haunted it. I just thought it was an old room in need of repair, nothing more. But the night I was assigned to check the electrical system, there changed everything. That night, I received orders to check the electrical system in room 313. It was a long-locked patient room, located at the end of a deserted corridor. When I unlocked it, a chilling blast of air, carrying the scent of old disinfectant and mildew, hit me directly in the face. I turned on my flashlight and stepped in. The room was empty, covered in thick dust with torn curtains. I started checking the electrical box. Suddenly, I heard a very faint rustling sound, like bed linen being dragged across the floor, coming from the old bed frame, though there was no bed in the corner of the room. I stopped, listening. The sound didn't disappear. It kept repeating, as if someone was trying to pull a blanket over themselves. I frowned, approaching the corner of the room. Nothing was there. I told myself it must be rats or wind, but the room was sealed, and there were no signs of rodents. When I returned to the electrical box, a small, icy cold, metallic object lightly touched my ankle. I startled, quickly looking down. It was an old, brass-colored metal button, slightly rusted. This button wasn't mine, and there was no reason for it to be there. Goosebumps erupted all over my body. I tried to ignore it, continuing my work. But then, I felt a strong sense of being watched, as if an invisible pair of eyes was staring at my every move. The air in the room became heavy, making it hard to breathe. I suddenly heard a very faint gasp right next to my ear, a weak, heavy gasp, like someone dying, and then a very regular tick-tock sound, like an old electronic heart monitor operating. That tick-tock became faster and faster, more and more urgent, like the heartbeat of someone on their deathbed. My whole body began to tremble violently. I knew I wasn't alone. I spun around. No one was there. But then, a terrifying physical phenomenon occurred. The only wooden chair in the room, placed by the window, suddenly rotated slowly, gradually facing me. It wasn't due to wind, as the window was shut tight. And on the bedside table, which had been empty, I saw a small, pale red, watery stain, like dried blood, slowly spreading across the dusty surface. Immediately, and bone-chilling cold radiated from that stain, engulfing me. I felt an overwhelming despair, an unbearable pain permeating the air. I let out a piercing scream, dropping my tools, and dashed out the door, not daring to look back. I could feel that invisible gaze still following me, a feeling of being held back, not allowed to leave. I ran out of room 313 like a madman. Since that night, I've never dared to go near that room again, and I've requested a transfer from the night shift. The stories about room 313 aren't just rumors. They are terrifying truths. The gasping, the heart monitor sounds, the self-rotating chair, and especially the dried bloodstain on the table, still haunt me to this day. I truly experienced the presence of a suffering soul, a patient who had not found peace. Lakeside Hospital, where I had spent 20 years, is no longer a safe workplace. It is a place where death still lingers, and trapped souls still wander, ceaselessly seeking a way to express their pain and despair